We're being joined by Mikey K, who is a former RAF helicopter pilot and also an investigative journalist. Now, Mikey, this is a pretty shocking incident that has happened. It is, for the first time in the war that's been ongoing in Ukraine, what we've witnessed is the Russian fighter jets have in fact brought down an American drone. How do you think this would have happened?
Well, I think, Mohammed, I think one of the important factors that hasn't been mentioned so far is the actual location of the drone at the point of this event. And all reports suggest that the location of the drone was in international airspace. And what that means is territorial waters extend along with the airspace from 12 nautical miles from the coast. Outside of 12 nautical miles, you have the high seas and you have international airspace. So the drone was in international airspace and it was legally allowed to be flying in that airspace, not encroaching inside any country's sovereign airspace. That's an important factor here.
Right.
The second point is that this isn't the first time we've seen Russian jets doing these kind of intercepts. Americans fly and allies fly all sorts of reconnaissance aircraft, P-3 Orions, for example. And we've seen many examples in the past of Russians making very, very close flights to Allied and US aircraft in the past. So this is a tactic that the Russians use quite frequently. The MQ-9 Reaper drone has a very large camera sensor on the front of the drone, and you can rotate that through 360 degrees, and that's where the footage you can see of the two passes made by the Su-27 dumping fuel onto the MQ-9. That's how it's enabled to capture that. On the wings of an MQ-9 Reaper, you can fit precision-guided munitions such as Hellfire missiles or a precision-guided bomb, but there's no air defense capability generally on these kind of drones. Therefore, the drone is a very vulnerable target to this type of attack. You don't have much situational awareness either inside a drone because it's obviously being operated from the ground. I think the other interesting part, all of this as well, is I've studied the footage at length.
Right.
And it appears that the first pass dropping fuel onto the drone is an incredibly close pass, but it's actually the second pass that appears to collide with the drone, and you can see on the footage that one of the propellers is very badly damaged on the drone. Now, due to the frequency of the camera, it's hard to discern how fast the prop is actually spinning on the back of the aircraft and effectively what damage has been done. But the camera goes out momentarily and then comes back and you can see the damage. I mean, this is an incredibly dangerous
now, Mikey, I need to
maneuver.
just interrupt you there because the question that I want to ask you is, we hear about incidents of two nations where their fighter jets intercept the plane of another. That is something that gets reported, in different parts of the world. But in this case, what has actually happened is these Russian fighter jets appear to be dumping huge quantities of fuel on this drone. How rare is something like this in case of an interception? They say that this was an interception, but this was actually an attempt to bring down the drone.
Absolutely, yeah. You don't see this very often. I can't recall any other time where this type of maneuver has been used on a drone or any other aircraft. And the simple reason is because it's illegal. It's an international airspace, and it's incredibly dangerous. The obvious intent of the Su-27s and the Russians was to, at best bring down the drone, but at minimal would be to make the camera and the sensors and the drone inoperable so that it couldn't continue its mission. Basically, the sensors inside the drone have imagery sensors and electronic intelligence sensors, and it's the electronic intelligence sensors that can potentially pick up, communications or any other form of electronic intelligence. So, the obvious intent you can see from the footage is for the Russian Su-27s to disable in some small or big part the mission and the operation of the MQ-9 Reaper. But I haven't seen anything like this in my experience.
Right. Now, Mikey, I just need to interrupt you there because now something that the Russians have also said is crucial here. We do not know the exact location as to where this incident transpired because that is going to be the key in establishing, as to what really may have led them. But the question that I want to ask you is this. Now, the MQ-9 Reaper drone is used for surveillance, but at the same time, it is, a drone that is capable of combat as well. This is a drone that has a history. The Americans have used this drone, for instance, in the assassination of the top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad. This is a drone that's been used by the Americans in carrying out several drone strikes in Pakistan and Afghanistan as well. With that being the history of this drone, for a drone of this nature to be spotted close to the battle zone, this is what the Russians are saying, is something that they would not take lightly. They've, of course, gone on and given the analogy as to what would the Americans do if a Russian fighter or a drone were to be spotted somewhere close to the American airspace. Do you think this is a valid argument that the Russians are making?
No, I don't. Absolutely not, because there are rules of engagement, and rules of engagement suggest along the lines that if the drone is flying straight and level in international airspace, then it is deemed no threat. Yes, the drone can carry Hellfire missiles, which are precision guided. Yes, it has an ability to attack very, very precisely ground targets. That's what the drone is used extensively for. The Russians have a similar sort of capability, maybe not as adept or as adept as the MQ-9, but they have a similar capability, and drones are widely used around the world for this. The drone has been used in Iraq and Afghanistan for years to conduct these kind of strikes. But the fact that if it's flying straight and level in international airspace, then that is not deemed a threat, and therefore the actions taken by the Fu-27s would not be deemed credible or safe.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Mikey K, for joining us and getting us those insights there.
Thanks, man.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.